Hello, so I'm Daniel. I'm obviously a team member at Growth Engineering here, and I do a lot of the work relating to content. So I create a lot of our in-house e-learning materials, and I also do a lot of work for our clients, which means I've learned how to use our own authoring tools really well. I love the tool. It's great fun to use, and I'm looking forward to giving you a quick walk around tour of how to use it and what makes Genie such a special and unique authoring tool in the current marketplace. So first off, I'd like to just give a few overall points. And all of them are generally around the message that Genie makes creating fun content really simple, and it makes creating fun content really easy. I think part of what makes Genie so unique is it doesn't just make creating the content fun easy, it actually makes creating the content a really enjoyable experience. As you can see on the screen right now, you can see that it's covered in gamification features. There's badges, achievements, a leaderboard, a news feed. So what you can see here is that if I want to, I can inspire my team with a message. In this case, I might type, "You guys are the best." Or alternatively, I can add award badges and earn badges, and I can climb the leaderboard here. So you can see Juliet, Sam, Harry currently ahead of me. So it's really important to realize that Genie incentivizes people to use the tool and create content, which is something you won't find on other tools. And when I say it's simple, it's probably perhaps the only tool for creating e-learning content that you'll find on the market that children would be able to pick up and use. Other tools, like some of our competitors, can take up to 3 days training to learn how to use. Genie you can pick up and use without instruction. It's so simple and so intuitive that you'll be able to create engaging, attractive, gamified content in a matter of minutes. I can even create a 10-minute micro unit in under an hour, which is incredibly swift. Just adding that, you don't need to have any coding knowledge. If you do, then that's great. But you don't need to use that when creating your training, which is super helpful, particularly because I don't actually know how to code. And then another thing that makes it great fun to use is it's completely collaborative. As you can see here, there are some of my content creating partners who also create content. If I wanted to, we could work on a project together. I could add them as an editor. I'll show you how to do that now, actually. All I have to do is simply click the drop-down menu. And in this case, look, you can see I'm working on this project here with my colleague Matt, and perhaps a few others as well. And then all I'd have to do is just add in, if I put in someone else's name, then they'd come up and I'd add them. It's so simple to do. And being collaborative means that if you've got school kids who want to work on a project together, or if you've got experts who you want to create content with, then you simply just add them as content creators and get started. And then finally, Genie really comes into its own when you combine it with our other learning technologies like the Academy LMS and the Knowledge Arcade. It becomes even more engaging, even more fun to use because they're so connected and they've got so much going on. And our beliefs and our values, we believe in engagement, which means we love gamification, social learning, personalization. That's the lifeblood of our 3 products, and it's consistent across all of them. And finally, let's get started with a dive into a quest, see how it works, what it looks like. We'll start with this one here, just because it's here. So this one is about gamification. Let's take a look. So it's just loading. But what we're doing here is we're previewing it. This means that we can see what the quest might look like when it's finished. Right now, we're using a really simple template. So this is just one of our ordinary templates, which doesn't have a game template attached. I'll go into that in a bit more detail in a second. So you can see here, being asked a question. There's a bonus points timer ticking down to add an element of pressure. And it's asking me how we define gamification. In this case, the application of game mechanics to non-gaming environments, making difficult tasks more palatable. That's exactly how we define it. So I'm going to click true. Boom. Exactly right. And here you've got some positive feedback, so that's great. And had I got it wrong, like I'm about to do now, you see it would give me some feedback there. Some more game questions here. So Scouts have been using game mechanics for longer than video games have even existed. But which game mechanics have they been using? We scroll down, you've got points, levels, leaderboards, badges. Actually, it's all of those. So I'm just going to quickly select those. So you can see game mechanics have been used to engage children, adults, learners for generations. You can even see the game mechanics in the military. So it's really exciting to see. Now I'm just going to open this Quest editor up now. And once that loads, I'll be able to show you how it is that we've gone about creating this content. Now, let's see. So we're on the Quest editing screen. And I'm just going to quickly walk you through the screen. On the left here, we've got the different publishing options. We can preview it like we just did, republish it, or unpublish it. We could also change the viewing options. And what this basically means is we can choose to push this to the app. As you can see, it's republished. You can see it's already being hosted on our Academy Superheroes app. I could also unpublish it, so stop it being published, or I could make some changes and update it and then republish it. So it's incredibly easy. In this case, it's literally a click of a button to push it out to the Knowledge Arcade. A really good example of how our products work so perfectly in tandem. And then moving on, you can see over here how we navigate through content. You can scroll through like that, or jump straight to slide 6, or of course, use this little panel over there. And then here we've got the quest details. So quest details are information which tell you about the quest. So when the learner opens it up, this is what they'll see. And it's what you need to create to engage your learners. So in this case, you'll click the thing there if you want to change the image, and you can change it anything you want to. You can add a title. Now, I like to think that titles should be engaging, and they should get your attention, a bit like a newspaper headline. They should make you want to read it. And then looking at this, we've got a little description of the content. Now, what goes in here, in my mind, is what we call the what's in it for me. So this is where learners should read about a unit and immediately know what they will get out of it. So, you know, you might put in some learning objectives in there, but make sure that the learning objectives grab their attention and make them want to crack on with the content. And then moving down, you can see that we've got slides, configure slide, and settings. Slides is where you can add new content, you can arrange it and order it. Configure slide is where you'll take the content you've created and you can make changes to it. So if we look at this, you've got all the text editing functions that you expect from Word. You can see bold, italics, underline. You can also align things, bullet points, numbering, everything you're used to. And then if you want to, we've also got settings. Moving into settings, you can add badges, points, leaderboards, wildcards, all sorts of things. But we're going to go into a bit more detail on that in a second, so not to worry about that right now. And then finally, looking at the slides, we'll go back and add some content. So add new content. What options do we have? We've got documents, text, audio, image, video, and questions. You'll obviously immediately have a great idea of how these could be useful. Just looking at documents, a great way you might use a document if you're at a school is you could put together a unit, and then at the end you might add some revision notes or something like that if they want to print them off, or you could add a PDF of some test cards, or there's a whole world of different ways that you could integrate documents into your content. Alternatively, text is what we've been looking at. A text is a very simple slide where you've got the wording and you have a title, but you don't have any extra features added. Very useful, but obviously not too innovative or exciting. Looking at the audio slide, if you wanted to add, you could add a podcast, or you could add some voiceover clips, or if you wanted to add a little clip of someone explaining something in a bit more detail, then this is a great way to take some otherwise perhaps unengaging content and make it a bit more exciting, a bit more personal, and give it that human touch. Of course, images, you can see what an image slide looks like over here. You can use them in all sorts of different ways. You could add a whole screen image that may be an infographic, or you could add some images that are in themselves there just to be exciting, add some color, add a splash of excitement to the screen, or alternatively, you could add some images that are there to instruct learners. And you can also add images to questions and to all sorts of other things. So images are obviously a really helpful instructional tool. And then you can add videos. They do very much the same thing as images. It's important to know that when you add an image or a video, you can have text underneath it. So perhaps with a video, you might say, watch this great video on how to complete long-form equations. And then in the text, it would say, make sure as you're watching the video to note these 5 things. And then you can have the 5 key points your learners should take from that video. Or alternatively, you could ask questions, help them engage with it, all sorts of different things you could do there. And then moving on, we've got questions. So questions are obviously super useful. What question types have we got on offer? Well, we've got yes, no, true, false, multi-choice, mix, match, text, discovery method, and dialogue. You could sort of split our questions into 3 different categories. You could say that we've got the qualitative ones on the one hand. So they would be the ones in which you're giving a longer answer, like the text questions or something like that. Then you've got the quantitative ones, like the yes, no, true, false, multi-choice, where there is very much a right or a wrong answer. And then finally, we've got ones like the discovery method question at the end, which encourages the learner to engage with the content in their own way. It's open-ended. There's neither a right or a wrong answer. The purpose isn't there to track their performance. It's not there to measure their success. It's there to help them personalize training. So we'll go into a bit more detail on some of these different question types, but let's just start with a simple multi-choice. So if we scroll down to content here, let's have a look at this one. So you can see there's a question here. We've got text. In this case, it's relating to a very specific scenario in which the learner is positioned as a detective and they're looking for some database crimes. And it asks them what they would do in a certain situation. And then what you can do is you can scroll down and you've got 2 different options. If you want to add more, it's as easy as clicking the add new answer option. If you want to make different answers correct, then you can have as many correct or incorrect as you like to. And you can do all sorts of different combinations with that. And then you can add new answers. You can assign assets to questions. So if you wanted to add any images or documents, audio, video, etc., then you could add that straight to a question, which is incredibly useful. I do that all the time. And then moving down here, you've got positive and negative feedback. So that's a great chance to encourage the learner to think about what they've done, and if they've done well, to build on that. If they've not done quite so well, to encourage them and give them some guidance on how they can improve, which is where assigning assets is, again, really helpful. You might add a document with some pointers, or you might add an image telling them to go back to Unit 3 and revise, or something like that. And then finally, we've got an Ask Genie hint. So Ask Genie hints is a bit like the phone a friend in a quiz show or a game show. It gives you the chance to get a little bit of insight on an otherwise tough question if you're a learner. So this is part of what we call wildcard functionality. If a learner's struggling, they can play one of 2 wildcards, the 50-50, which removes half of the incorrect options, or they can ask Genie for a hint. Now, the hint he might ask in this case would be, you look around the remains of the office, something catches your eye, what do you do? It might say something along the lines of, what could you do to progress the case? Perhaps you could inspect the notepad, or something like that, to give them a tiny pointer and a little bit of an edge. These are really useful, and they just a great way to make unengaging content fun, exciting, and more like a game show. And then if we move down, so yes, no, true, false, multi-choice, mix, match, and text, I'm sure are quite self-explanatory. They are exactly how they sound. They're incredibly easy to use. And I'll just finally touch on dialogue question and discovery method. So a dialogue question resembles a conversation, a bit like on WhatsApp or iMessage. And the learner is encouraged to read and review the conversation as a different thing slide in. So you might have a conversation in a retail environment between a customer and a sales representative. And then once they've reviewed the question, the conversation, they'll answer a question. And in the question, it will be asking them to take what they've learned in the conversation and apply it to this situation. It's incredibly helpful, and I can imagine it working really well in schools. You might have conversations maybe between historical figures, or you could have conversations between teachers and students. There's hundreds of different ways I could imagine it being such a fun element to include, particularly with children using it as a way of having fun and playing around. And then finally, discovery method. This is my favorite of the question types. It's the one I mentioned earlier, which is neither right nor wrong. Its purpose is to help learners personalize training. There are simple ways you could use it. You could ask the learner at the beginning of a history module, you could say, what's your favorite period of history? And then they put their answer in, and then as the unit goes on, you could pull that through using a feature which we call dynamic text. Dynamic text, you can import discovery method answers. So in this case, you can see that there's already 2 discovery method answers we could input here. Why do you think it might not be appropriate for companies to process data like religious beliefs, etc.? You would insert that and it would pull through the answer they've given in the past. Alternatively, you can do things like insert their name or their title. So just to show you what that looks like, close. The learner name is, let me have a look. Sorry, my mouse is playing up. It's just appeared here in the middle, which is not very helpful, but we will, that's my fault for having the cursor there. Now, if you look, it says GDPR, which is the name of the person this account belongs to. So that's a really great way of making content just a tiny bit more personal for your learners, making it more human. Instead of it saying learner or student at the beginning, it can actually address them directly as Daniel or GDPR or whatever their name might be. So yeah, discovery method is a fantastic way of engaging your learners. Having looked at different content types and having looked at all these different options, now going to look at some of the gamification functionality on Genie. So if we look, we've got questions, and you can see the bonus points timer we looked at sliding down here. So bonus points are a way to add an element of excitement to a unit. What they do is they will have your learners basically race against the clock to get the correct answer. And if they get it right, they get even more points. So if I answered it now, I get 7 points, 6 points, etc. And I find that for me, they're one of the elements that really brings content to life. We can also award points for, just scrolling down, for actually getting the question right. So using a combination of awarding points for being correct and awarding points for doing it quickly, you can create the perfect reward balance. It's really helpful. And then you can also add things like a badge. So if your learner was to have done really well, then you just pop a badge on and reward them for it. So in this case, you might say gamification sensation, put that in the title. And then in the description, you'd say something like, you're a learning legend. You nailed it, or something like that. And then you just add an image, and it's as simple as that. They're going through the content, all of a sudden, they answer a question right. And then to all sorts of excitement, they're awarded this badge with some confetti falling and all that sort of thing. And it's just a great way to make them feel special and rewarded for having done something good. Moving on, we've got the settings section. And here we can add points to the unit. So if we add points, then that'll be if they get the whole content correct, they'll be awarded a certain amount of points. So we can add badges to the unit so that when they finish the unit, they're awarded a badge. And we can also add a leaderboard. So that's for if a unit is really, if they're competing over it, they want to get it right, then you add a leaderboard in there. And that's just a great way of adding some excitement in and adding some competition to the content. And then finally, you can turn wildcards on and off. Like we mentioned earlier, we've been through that already. And then scrolling down, you can add game templates. Right now, we're looking at what we call the quick quest. Now, a quick quest will automatically brand the template and make it look professional, and it will be suited to your guidelines, and it will do it at the snap of a finger. So that when you're creating your content, you don't have to worry about formatting or any of that sort of slightly tedious things. You can just get on with creating what matters. Or you can add all sorts of different contents. In this case, you've got Mountain Master, Bubble Blaster. What else have we got on this version? You can see all sorts of different games on here. Whack-a-mole, for example. But if we go back to the Bubble Blaster, just because Being honest, that's my favorite. We'll see how the content looks when you've got a game template attached, and then we'll finish. So we click preview. Just wait for it to load. And now that it tells you how to play, you've got some instructions, but we'll skip those because I'm well versed in this. And then going through, we basically aim to pop the bubbles and unlock content. So again, we've been with this question, but you can see how the content is delivered as you get the bubbles correct. Perfect. So thank you so much for listening. I hope you can see how easy and fun the tool is to use. And good luck and have fun using it.